Okay, we're live. We're good to go.
Good morning and welcome to the Committee of Adjustment meeting for June 9th, 2021. My name is Don Popple and I'm your chairman for today. The notice to all those in attendance that at this meeting will be live streamed on YouTube and recorded. Please note that the recording will be linked to the municipal website following the meeting. Our committee today consists of myself as chairman, Mr. David Bishop is a committee member, Mr. Gerald Walker is a committee member, and Mr. Walt McKechnie, who is a council appointee, as a committee member. We also have Mr. Jeff Isles, who is the secretary of the Committee of Adjustment, and Danielle, who is the project coordinator. So if you want to be, what do you say? Anyway, if you don't cooperate with Danielle, she has a switch to cut you off. So this is a public hearing to consider 6 applications for a minor variance in the municipality zoning bylaw. It's the committee's responsibility to consider all information received to date regarding the requested variances and to hear and consider any comments or questions provided by these applications. Any variances granted by the committee must meet 4 tests, which are very clearly defined in the Planning Act. The requested variance must be minor in nature, must be desirable for the proper development of the land, comply with the general intent of the official plan, and comply with the general intent of the zoning bylaw. If anyone wishes to be notified of the decision, please make a request in writing to the municipality. Does any committee member have any conflict of interest? In Mr. Walker's case, which when we deal with the first application, which is McCoy on Coagama Lake, since he wasn't able to attend the site meeting, he won't be participating in any discussion with respect to that case. This meeting and future Committee of Adjustment meetings will be hosted via electronic participation format. Any oral or written submissions received in advance of the meeting will be verbally read aloud at the time of the applications being considered. Information regarding live streaming of the meeting is available on the Municipality of Dyerside et al.'s website. All persons who have pre-registered will have an opportunity to present or ask questions about the proposals. And please direct all your questions and comments to the chair. Each person will have up to 5 minutes to provide comments or ask questions. Once finished speaking, the meeting host will mute their microphone. Please state your name in relation to the application prior to the meeting. The first case that we're dealing with today is a returning file of Mr. McCoy, Mike McCoy, and he's being represented by his wife, Jennifer Corbett. So is Jennifer live right now?
She's coming on the screen.
Before we get to that first file, we might want to, can we pass the resolutions with regards to the minutes?
Well, that's a good idea. Before we get to your case, Jennifer, we just have to clean up a couple of administration things here. We have 2 sets of, okay? We have 2 sets of minutes that have to be adopted. Got a mover and a seconder for the minutes of May 12, 2021. Moved by David Bishop, second by Walt McKechnie. All in favor? Carried. And the minutes from May 28th, 2021 site inspection be adopted as read. Somebody move it and second it. Dave Bishop, Walt McKechnie. It's carried.
Jerry, I'm going to be turning off your video now.
Jerry, we're just going to cut you off for a bit here.
That's fine. I'll just keep an eye out.
Okay. So Jennifer, as you are aware, we spent part of an afternoon and visited your lovely spot in Coagama Lake. In my instance, I've only been on Coagama Lake by snowmobile, so I found it to be very intriguing. And I think that I don't really know that you have to comment too much because we have everything on file, but I'd like to have the committee voice their opinions on what we're going to do here. Dave Bishop?
Dave, you are muted.
You're online. What's he doing?
He's trying to unmute.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to unmute. There we go.
How am I now?
You're good. You're good to go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The site inspection was particularly invaluable in regard to this application because when we viewed it just on the basis of paper, it added some confusion to me. But what helped on the site visit that the applicant was able to show us actually on the ground where he wants to have these variances applied to this new building. The replacement of the existing building and the addition now of the new building in a different location, in my opinion, betters the situation from what exists at this point in time, because a major portion of this is actually moved back from the lake from where the existing building is. And it would be my submission, Mr. Chair, that subject to the conditions that are recommended by staff in regard to this application, that I would like to make a motion to approve the applicant's proceedings on this matter. As again, the approval is subject to the conditions that the staff comments warrant.
You have a seconder? Mr. McKechnie?
Before we proceed, would you like the Deputy Secretary to read out the conditions so that anybody attending, so that they're clear for all those attending as well as the
Okay,
applicant?
we'll read the conditions first.
Perfect. So I'm going to read out the conditions. So the variance applies to the seasonal dwelling and the sauna as shown generally on property sketch A and B dated February 17th, 2021 and attached to the decision. Any increase in the dwelling frontage beyond the variance granted herein will require further variance application. The tree line, the Halliburton County Shoreline Tree Preservation Bylaw applies. Prior to demolition and reconstruction, proper site preparation and construction methods are to be used to prevent sedimentation of the adjacent lake. Prior to the pouring of footings, the applicant must supply confirmation from an Ontario Land Surveyor that the dwelling complies with the minimum water setback as shown in property sketch B dated February 17th, 2021. Prior to the issuance of the building permit, the private cabin that is proposed to be used as a sauna is to be removed or moved into compliance. Prior to the occupancy, the applicant agrees to implement a 3-meter vegetation buffer along the front of the dwelling to screen development from the shoreline. It says prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall obtain a change of use permit if necessary to change the use of a private cabin into a sauna.
Okay, we'll proceed with the voting on the application. It's been resolved the committee decision with respect to file D13 MV 2021-002 be recorded as follows. It's an increase to provision of section 319 to permit a dwelling within the required water setback abutting a shoreline to have a dimensional parallel to the shoreline of 20.3 meters or 66.6 feet, as opposed to required maximum of 18.5 or 60.7 feet. Is granted. Indicate your support by the vote. Thank you. And a variance to section 3.1 to permit an accessory building bracket sauna to be used for habitation is granted. And that's carried. And that's all we need. And Jennifer, we hope we weren't too difficult for you to deal with, but having had
Oh,
the site
no, thank
meeting,
you. I'm glad you enjoyed the site visit as well.
we told your husband that we wouldn't be too difficult to deal with respect to you. So
Thank you.
anyway, the fact that we were able to attend the site was 100% easier than what would normally be the case.
Thank you.
Thank you
Will
very
you
much.
be emailing those, like the decision and the conditions, or is there somewhere I can look that up?
Yes, they will be sent to you.
There is an appeal period of 20 days, so I don't, as long as you don't proceed between now and the 20 days, then it's fine. But I would expect there would be no problem because I don't think we had any disagreements from any of the property owners nearby or whatever.
Okay,
So
great.
thank you very much for filling in.
Thank you.
Thank you. The second application is Sue Harrison. Is she hooked in?
She's just coming in.
We can bring Jerry Walker back in.
Bring Jerry in.
Jerry, I've prompted you to start your video.
Thank you.
Okay, we're set to go. Sue, if you would just like to give us a quick synopsis on your application, and then I'm sure the committee will have some questions for you.
You
She's
are
not
currently
live.
muted.
She's not live.
You're on mute, Sue.
There you
Now I'm
go.
live.
Oh, you're there.
Sorry, Mike Corsi, the property owner, is trying to sign in, I think.
Oh, He's on the screen.
Oh, he is. I can't see him. Okay. All right. We'll go on. Okay. So I'm the authorized acting agent for Mike and Rhonda Corsi. They own a property at 1567 Percy Lake Road. The property contains a seasonal dwelling that was built in early 80s. There is a septic and 2 sheds on the property. So they would like to expand the existing dwelling, and they need 1 minor variance to accomplish that. The variance would modify the minimum lot line setback, interior side, main building from 4.5 meters to 3 meters. So the site, I think, I put a lot of photographs in my report because the site, the pictures explain the site. The site comes flat off Percy Lake Road. Then there's a steep incline where the Corsis have built their dwelling, and then it flattens out close to the lake. And so the lay of the land really dictates how the property can be used. And the property adjacent to them that would be potentially impacted by the minor variance is developed exactly opposite to the way the Corsis have. The Corsis have just the driveway and the shed at the top. Their home is built into the hill, and then they're flat down by the lake, and they have an open area with trees and a fire pit down there. Their neighbors have done the exact opposite in terms of interpreting their lot. They have a garage right up by the road. They have absolutely nothing adjacent to where their dwelling is. And then they built their seasonal dwelling down by the lake. So the area where the variance is requested, it's adjacent, the adjacent property is completely vacant and it's steeply sloped. So there's not likely to ever be anything built there. So in terms of the tests, is it desirable and appropriate? They've hired Highland Design, which is a local firm, totally understands the local context. The design doesn't impact the shoreline, the water setback, the environment, and totally respects all those values. And the neighbors have indicated that they have no concern with what is proposed. They actually provided a written letter. As I said, this is an area that was developed in the early 80s. And all the properties have are smaller WR4 lots. So they're smaller in character and design, and the additions are minor in nature, and they're totally within the max GFA for the area, and they're very much in character with the neighborhood. So I would say it is desirable and appropriate. In terms of the zoning, it's zone WR4, which is waterfront residential 4. So the smaller lots that were built, created before our current standards. And so on that lot, they have chosen to build well back from the water. They're over 30 meters back from the water. So they respect that water setback. And they only need the 1 variance. They meet all of the other setbacks for the proposal. And as I said, they have a letter from their neighbor saying they have no problem with what's proposed.
Right.
So I would say it meets the purpose and intent of the zoning. Again, on the official plan, meeting the intent and the nature of the official plan, respects the environment, doesn't affect the shoreline water aesthetic. and it continues a permitted use. There's no change in use or lot created or anything like that.
There is,
And then in terms of minor, sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, and in terms of minor, I do believe it's very minor in nature.
It is very minor.
Has no impact on the environment, no impact on the neighbor. So I would suggest that they meet the 4 tests and would ask the committee to approve the minor variance so the Corsies could go on with the addition to their home.
I don't think we have a huge problem with this, but there is a shed that's supposed to be removed. Is that correct?
Yes, there's a shed down by, there are 2 sheds. There's one up by the water. I
Yeah.
mean, by the road that is going to be removed after they rebuild. It's in compliance. It's not a problem, but the shed that is down by the water is within the water setback. And
Right.
it's in front of the house. And in the course of me doing my research on this, we found that the previous owner had received a letter from the municipality saying it need to be removed or moved into compliance. And the Corsies just weren't aware of that. And the property owners have no problem moving. They'll either have to move it back behind the dwelling or remove it completely because it can't be in front of the front wall of the dwelling.
Fair enough. Does any of the committee members have any questions or comments to make with respect to this application? Mr. Bishop?
Is the applicant ready to accept the conditions that might be imposed by staff in regard to granting this variance, Mr. Chair?
We haven't read them yet, but we're going to do that, yeah.
Yes, perhaps this would be a good time to read
This
out
would be
the
a good time to
conditions
do
for
that.
discussion
Go ahead.
purposes.
Go ahead, Danielle.
Perfect. So these variances apply to the seasonal dwelling as shown generally on the property sketch dated April 21st and attached to the decision. The County of Haliburton tree line shoreline preservation bylaw applies. During constructions, proper site preparation and construction methods are to be used to prevent sedimentation of the adjacent lake. The neighbor agrees to implement a 1 meter vegetation buffer to screen development from the view from neighboring property. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the shed located within the minimum water setback is to be removed or brought into compliance with the provisions of zoning bylaw 2005-120.
Does the applicant have any concerns with those proposed conditions?
No, the applicant does not.
I didn't hear what you said.
She does not have any concerns with the proposed
You
conditions.
got the document. Are there any other questions from any of the committee members? If not, we'll proceed with the application. Moved and seconded the committee's decision with respect to file D13 MV 2021-13 be recorded as follows. To decrease the provision of section 5.2 to permit a dwelling to have a minimum interior side lot line of 3 meters or 9.84 feet as opposed to required 4.5 or 14.76 feet. Granted? Carried? All in favor? Carried?
Dave has a
So
question.
the request has been granted as requested, and there is an appeal period of 20 days, and after that, if there's nothing negative comes in, then you're good to go.
Dave
Thank
has
you
a
very
question.
much.
Who has a
Dave
question?
has a question.
No, I don't
Jerry?
have a question. I just want to pass some information on to Mr. Corsi. If you run your boat parallel to the shoreline in that area, about 100 feet off of the shore and use about 70 feet of copper line, troll behind, you'll catch a lake trout there just about every time you go by.
You're not supposed to share that information.
I'm not on Percy Lake anymore.
The problem is you'd have to share the fish with the committee.
That's fair.
Thank you very much for your attendance today, and I'm sure you'll be able to proceed as requested. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The third application is Silver Beach Jerry Kowalski is attending person to speak.
Yep, I'm just bringing him on the screen.
Please be advised, Chair, that there are a few members of the public that wish to speak on this too. So once Mr. Kowalski's had a chance to present his proposal, then we will be bringing in members of the public to voice their comments.
Right. Okay. So that's Mr. Stokes and Clara and Peter Oiler.
Correct.
Okay, Jerry, the floor is all yours. You can just
Can you hear me
bring us
now?
up to date.
Can you hear me okay?
Well, you're good to go. Yep.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee members, Jeff and Danielle. As you're aware, Silver Beach Developments is a project that was approved over a decade ago. We have been diligently working to create a wonderful community on the lake just outside of the town of Halliburton. It's been very successful. We are now at the final phase of the last 2 dwelling units, lots 15 and 22. Upon placing the desired home that the purchaser is purchasing on lot 22, I noticed that the front lot line, through some kind of a drafting error 10 or 12 years ago, was measured 12.5 meters on the bias from the front property line at the right to the front property marker on the left. Because that's on a cul-de-sac, it actually pinched the lot lines, which should have been parallel, which caused us to not comply with the side yard setbacks on that property. Front and rear yard are fine. We are asking for relief from 1.75 meter side yard setbacks to 1.4 meter. That would allow the building to sit in virtually the same position as it would have with the proper lot line configuration. I would ask that, considering this is the last home in a 59 home project, and we've built 57 to this date and have been quite well received in the community, I would ask that the committee pass a minor variance to allow me to complete this project to its final stage.
Okay. Any questions from the committee members? Mr. Bishop?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would ask the applicant to advise you whether or not this change that he's requesting, whether it contravenes any of the planning documents that are already filed, the condominium plans and the rules in connection with the operation of the condominium properties. Is there anything in those documents that are contrary to this application?
No, there isn't, Mr. Bishop. I have spoke with our condominium lawyer, and this is a normal course of event in a vacant land condominium if a minor variance is required. And the Condominium Act allows that, and the corporation is also in favor of this variance.
Mr. Walker?
I reviewed it, the notes on that, and I'd like to make a motion that we grant the application as applied for.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Before we proceed, we have received some public comments on this file. So perhaps the Deputy Secretary Treasurer could read out the public comments received before we move to the vote.
So we received an email from Rick and Sylvia Perkins. They have no objections to this application by Silver Beach Developments. We received an email from David and Victoria Tranter. They stated they have no objections to the Silver Beach development. And 2 other comments will be verbally spoken by the applicant, the people we have on the line today.
So what we'll do right now, Chair, is we're going to bring forward 2 members of the public. We'll bring them forward one at a time so that they can voice their comments. The committee members and can ask them any questions they like, and as well as the applicant can answer any questions.
Clara first.
Yep, I'm going to be bringing Clara and Peter Euler first.
Okay. Here they are here.
Yep.
Are you live, Clara?
Good
Peter?
morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and members of the public. I want to thank the committee for allowing me to speak this morning. First and foremost, we're speaking in support of the application. I've seen and been before Committee of Adjustments for many years, and this is probably the smallest minor variance that I think I've ever seen come before a Committee of Adjustment. The variance, the side yard variance affects only 3 properties directly. 2 with side yard setbacks and 2 with rear yard setbacks and 1 with a side yard setback. The setbacks, of course, relate only to the footprint of the foundation and nothing else, be it roof overhangs, et cetera, et cetera. The rear yard setback to the adjoining property backing onto the new home that is to be built is not affected in any way, and it's not changing. And it's obviously not part of this application as I understand it. Also, I can recall as a member of the Silver Beach Condominium Board, there were never any issues raised with respect to issues that might be related in any way, shape, or form to this, the development of this property. Finally, the minor variance will not adversely affect the 3 immediate adjoining properties where the side yards and or rear yards are being affected. And it's only, as I said earlier, it's only by inches, and it's a very, very small minor variance. It is, as Mr. Kowalski pointed out, one of the last 2 lots to be done. And as far as I am aware, there have been no other issues, either when I was on the board or since, that have requested a minor variance with respect to the development of Silver Beach. I know the residents of Silver Beach are just as anxious to see this development completed, not to get rid of Mr. Kowalski necessarily, understand, but to see this development completed and have this community fully developed. So I ask the committee to support the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions to Mr. Euler? There being none, we will switch to Mr. Stokes.
I'll be bringing Jerry Stokes forward.
He's not live yet.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for allow me to speak with this panel.
Thank you. Would you
Well, pardon me?
just go ahead and make your comments? That's fine, no problem.
Well, I was instructed to submit my comments in writing, and I did.
Yes,
Have they been reviewed?
yes.
We have not reviewed your comments yet. We thought, given that you were participating in person today, that you would like to review your comments. Would you like staff to read your comments?
Yes, I will. I'll read them as I sent them in, okay? If I
Okay.
want.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, as instructed, I'm responding to the email from you about my concerns on this variance and proposed building. The home that the builder is proposing has a cantilevered floor plan not shown on the property plan. This is a 22-inch extended floor plan on both the east side and west side of the structures. This will alter the setback further. The resultant with the true dimensions will be in a setback on the east side of 0.839 meters or 33 inches. The same will apply on the west side with a true dimension setback of 0.922 meters or 36 inches. In addition, as per R2 zone restrictions, the proposed building would be within 0.225 meters of allowable landfill. Given the footprint of a single car garage, porch entrance and walkway and paved driveway, the lot is not going to meet the 35% open space restriction. Note, this is also not taken into account the 280-foot open deck space at the back. I have my concerns with this property because of the raised elevations, and Mr. Kowalski is quite aware of that. Over the years that I've lived here, I've watched the houses being built around me, and he is building a wonderful home. It's a truly superb building. But I am upset the fact that he has just continually raised the elevations of these homes behind me. What's going to happen when we put this house in, or he puts this proposed building in, is we're going to have another couple thousand square feet of hard space, be it roof, pavement, whatever, with nowhere for the water to go except running back to the low spot, which happens to be the catch basin for the 5 surrounding properties, my property, lot number 16. I've asked Mr. Kowalski to address this with me. He says to me, don't worry about it. When it's sodded, it'll all seep into the ground. Well, I'm sorry, the roof isn't sodding, nor driveway or asphalt. Now, I feel that what's going to happen here is Mr. Kowalski is going to go ahead and build his house. And that's probably the inevitable because he has done a great job in building here. But I think we need to take into consideration the adjoining properties. When I moved here, I bought and paid for an oversized luxury gated community. Well, looking at a house that's going to be adjoining my property, staring up at it, while the water that runs off it is catching in my backyard, is not my idea of a luxury setting. Mr. Kowalski has not taken into account, I don't think, the true effect that is going to happen to the people on the west side of the property when they take a step 5 feet off their deck and walk into the wall of a house. This is, I don't think it's really conducive to the property values of these houses that are left around it. But that's my feeling. That's all I have to say. Oh, excuse me, I do have one other thing to say because this is good. We are on record here. This is being taped. Through secondary people, I do not take lightly to threats, being legal or otherwise. So just be aware, I'm not one to be lied to, and I'm not one to take threats lightly. Thank you for your time.
Have any questions, gentlemen? Mr. Bishop?
I'm somewhat confused about the building having been cantilevered off of its foundation. I don't understand what that factor is. Just let me finish, please, sir.
Sorry.
And lastly, I don't think that this is the forum in which you should bring up those comments that you made at the last. Anyway, I'll leave it there, but I don't understand the cantilever aspect. Maybe Mr. Kowalski can explain that to me. So let him speak, please.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Cantilevers are an aesthetic to the side of a building rather than have it be a flat. It also adds a little bit more space on the interior. This house that's proposed has a cantilever on the west side, northwest side or southwest side for one bedroom. It's approximately 9 to 10 feet, cantilevered 22 inches over top of the foundation wall. On the other side, there will be a 5-foot space cantilevered to allow additional room in the dining room. So a dining room table could be positioned horizontally to the kitchen cabinetry. And there's also a 4-foot bump out, we call them, or a cantilever for the fireplace. So the fireplace can be installed level in the wall. It's not a cantilevering of the whole house. It's just 3 small areas that add to the aesthetic value of the house and add to the living space.
So if I may ask, Mr. Chair, through you, if I'm looking straight down from the sky, down onto this site, and the house being built and these cantilevered processes being there, will all of my side walls meet the sideline setback that you are now applying for?
Are you asking me, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Yes. We have been building cantilevered buildings for over 10 years. And when originally we brought the plans to the chief building official of the day, he reviewed the plans, and his judgment at the time was cantilevers do not count into the setback. It's the foundation of the dwelling, and a small cantilever is fully acceptable. And that is the way we have proceeded for 10 years. We have done this process in many applications, not all, but many. And they have all been permitted properly. They have been inspected correctly, and they have been granted occupancy. So at your question, when you look from the roof, from the sky down, you would not see the cantilevers. They do not project out past the overhang of the roof.
Mr. Isles?
Thank you, Chair. And I can't comment on what the chief building official has permitted through permits previously. I just want to advise the committee of what the zoning bylaw says. So what the zoning bylaw says with regards to minimum lot line setbacks is that it is the permitted distance between a lot line and the nearest part of a structure. So as per the zoning bylaw, which are black and white, that setback should be measured from the nearest part of the structure, not the foundation.
Mr. Walker?
I just have a question for Mr. Kowalski. I do believe back 10 some years ago, you went through a complete site plan, and that included stormwater management.
Correct.
And that was all approved by the municipality, engineering, etc.
Yes, and it has been working well for 10 years.
So with that information, I'd like to still proceed with my move to accept this minor variance as stated.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Would the applicant be, would the applicant agree to a condition that the development comply with the stormwater management plan, something along that lines, just to ensure that development in line with the stormwater management plan that is approved for that development?
If I may, we have followed the grading and from the master plan and the stormwater management plan. I will offer, and not only to help satisfy Mr. Stokes, but for my own personal comfort, I don't want to, this property has never impacted anyone adversely. We have always managed to direct water where it needs to be through a series of swales and ditches. That is the ultimate plan for Mr. Stokes's property. I know he has a concern of stormwater running off the higher elevation of lot 22. I have assured him that that water will be diverted through swales and ditches to the front ditch line and to the ditch line at the front of the house the other direction. And I am prepared to have our engineers come and analyze it, make sure that it is constructed properly, and to ensure that no stormwater runoff is going to collect on Mr. Stokes's property. It would be diverted through swales through the side yards of his property, which is the intent of the original stormwater management plan.
Thank you.
Take the question.
Can I address that?
Yes.
That's a wonderful statement that Mr. Kowalski just made. And I'm glad that he did it with the council here so that my concerns about runoff will be addressed.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that very much. It's too bad that we couldn't have come to something of that kind of agreement just between us where it
Well,
would be. looked
Mr.
at
Stokes,
over with
Mr. Stokes, I've told you that from the beginning, that when the last 2 lots were built, that the proper grading and swales would be addressed on completion.
Okay, I'm not, I don't want to get into it. This is, and as has been said, this is not an issue where we should be take personalities aside. If you're going to do that, that's fine with me. I
I
really,
didn't say anything about your personality, sir.
well, what
Let's
was
not get
the-
into that.
What was the thing
Please,
about the lawyer?
move on with the
and
committee, please.
restriction?
Let's not get into that. As I read what you're telling me, Mr. Stokes, if that condition is in writing and part of the motion, that you would be okay with that.
I'm fine with it. I just
Okay.
wanted to point out that this building is going to cover a large part of the lot and the water has to go somewhere. I do appreciate the fact that the building department has recognized that the measurement is taken to the furthermost exterior wall, which is the bump outs. But other than that, it's going to happen. Thank you very much for your time. And I
Thank
will
you.
appreciate seeing the written report at the end. I do. Thank you.
Okay, is there a seconder for the motion? Mr. McEachnie. All in favor?
Don, would you like me to read out the conditions prior to?
I have a question,
Prior
Mr.
to a
Chair.
vote?
Oh, let's just delay the vote for a second here because there are other restrictions that you've got to put on it, Daniel.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And just based on the discussion and based on the report, there are a couple of conditions that are being recommended. So I want to read those out right now so that the committee can discuss those with the applicant. There's 3 conditions being recommended. The first condition is that this variance applies to a dwelling as shown generally on property sketch dated May 4th, 2021 and attached to the decision. The second condition being recommended is prior to January 1st, 2022, an Ontario land surveyor is to confirm the side lot line setbacks comply with those granted today. And again, the intent of that condition is due to Mr. Stokes' concerns that the cantilever would not comply with what was being requested here today. And then the third condition being recommended is that the development shall be constructed as per the stormwater management plan associated with the development.
Okay. Ready for the question?
I have a concern, Mr. Chair. I have a concern with the condition of the setbacks complying with when you factor the cantilevers into the side wall of the structure. This has not been the premise that we have operated on. And as we can all see by looking at the site plan that I've provided, if you had a cantilever, it would definitely hang 22 inches into that 1.41 or 1.43, 1.72 meter zone. I propose that I am allowed to continue this development with the standards and precedents that have been set to allow cantilevers to project into the setback. This is a condominium. It's a vacant land condominium. It is not intended to be a wide open space. This enhances the value of the home, but does not affect the operation of the home when it comes to the setback. And I would like to request that we be continued to build this home the way that everything has previously been assumed to be correct and has been approved and certified and signed off by the chief building officials.
And I appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Kowalski. My concern is if the committee were to grant this variance today, it still would not bring that building into compliance. So it's just pushing this compliance issue down the road. It's not really bringing it into compliance. So there are options how to proceed. One is with this condition. If Mr. Kowalski is agreeable, we could recirculate it with the new distances to ensure that it is brought into compliance with the appropriate distances. But to proceed as is without any condition, knowing that it might not meet the variance as circulated, is not going to bring this into compliance, and you may not get your building permit. So that's why I just want to ensure we get this right here today.
But Jeff, this is a judgment call that you're saying this is how it is today. Over 10 years ago, we were ruled and judged that this is how this development was to be treated by the building official of the day, and that is how we have proceeded. This is the last home in a 59 home subdivision. And to all of a sudden apply a different set of rules is moving the bar after it's been established for over a decade. And I just don't feel that that's appropriate or fair to apply today's judgments with something that was approved 10 years ago and was inspected and approved throughout those 10 years.
I have a comment from Mr. Walker and then Mr. Bishop, please.
Yes, I gotta agree with Mr. Kowalski. You know, he's exactly right. This condominium, this project has been approved for in excess of 10 years. His whole project has went with cantilevers. And to change the goalposts at this point, I don't agree with it for the final couple of homes here that he has to deal with. And if I would amend my motion that we do not accept the condition of the cantilevers being affected on the setback.
Mr. Bishop?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if there's been a change from what was in place 10 years ago. Maybe it's a matter of interpretation. But the real situation is if the cantilever brings the building closer to the lot line than what is being applied for, then to effectively get a clearance on this building in the future wouldn't fly. You're going to have to get another minor variance. It might be a situation that somebody interpreted the zoning bylaw incorrectly in the past. That's not the problem of this committee, I submit, Mr. Chair. That's a problem with council and its employees. And I don't think we're here to all of a sudden holus bolus approve of what might appear at this point in time to be a lot of buildings in this development that might not meet the setback bylaws. The applicant would, in my submission, maybe be best to try to amend his application to include that the setback is involving the cantilever distance. I know he's saying it's not coming over the eaves hanging out, but you may as well deal with it right up front rather than let it lie there like something that's going to jump up and bite you.
How much area are we talking about here?
22
How many
inches.
inches?
22
Pardon?
inches underneath the overhang of the roof, which is already permitted to overhang into a side yard setback.
Well, I just want the committee to be aware that that you could proceed without this condition, but the variance being granted might not bring development that Mr. Kowalski is applying for into compliance with the zoning bylaws. So when he applies for his building permit showing that cantilever, and it doesn't meet the side lot line setback approved here today, the building department may just deny that permit. So that's why I want to be clear on how we proceed today, that we can proceed as you decide. It's just you may not get your building permit.
Well, would we be better to defer the application and check this out with council? Would that be appropriate? There's not much. Go ahead, Gerald.
I'd just like to suggest that if Mr. Kowalski is agreeable, that we do pass it and he takes his case up with the building department. The building department has a history of approving 50, would you say 57 of these?
57
homes.
to date.
So it's going to be, the chance that he's going to take that, why would they change their mind now? So I would like to see us proceed with my motion and proceed with the vote, please.
Okay. The resolution. Moved and seconded that the committee's decision with respect to file D13 MV 2021-14 be recorded as follows. The decreased provision in section 5.2 to permit a dwelling to have an east interior side lot line of 1.4 meters or 4.59 feet as opposed to required 1.75 meters or 5.74 feet permitted by zoning bylaw amendment 2006-119 to be granted. Please indicate your support by holding your hand up. Motion is carried.
Don, who seconded that?
Both Walter and
Walter.
Dave.
Well,
Thank you.
and a decrease in section, provision of section 5.2 to permit a dwelling to have a west interior side line of 1.4 meters or 4.59 feet as opposed to required 1.75 meters or 5.74 feet permitted by zoning bylaw amendment 2006-119. Granted. Carried. There is an appeal period, Mr. Kowalski, but you can go ahead and apply for your building permit and get that underway. But the appeal is 20 days. And so I would suggest that you don't do any building until that time. But
Thank you very much.
you're welcome, sir.
Thank you all committee members.
Thank you.
Where we go next is
Don't screw it up.
No, you're left.
Mr. Farr.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and
Morning, Mr. Farr.
how are you?
Welcome to Halliburton.
Oh, we've been there a long time. I
Well,
learned
we're glad to hear that because that's what keeps this county going.
I learned to walk on Lake Halliburton 60 years ago.
Oh, that right. Would you just give us a quick synopsis of your proposal with respect to your property on Percy Lake?
Yes, sir. The cottage is approximately 800 square feet, built in 1973 or so. One of the close to original cottages. It's sitting on a lot that is approximately 100 feet wide by 190 feet deep. It's located on what was originally Pine Point Road, which is now Bernie's Road, Bernie's Circle, Bernie's Road, a whole bunch of things. It's been in the family for 35 years. We're proposing to tear down the vast majority of our cottage and rebuild. We've submitted a sketch of that. All of that meets the lot line setbacks and that to the best of our knowledge and working with the town. In order to do that, we considered the best way to construct this and to continue enjoying wonderful Percy Lake. And that was to build a garage in the back of the property with a loft in order that we could store contents of the while under construction with the cottage and to provide a living space while under construction and for the future. We looked at the property, the physics or the geography of the property, and it's impacted by the same geography that impacts the Corsi's property, although ours, the geologic feature of this rock or the hill sort of dissipates on our property. As you'll notice in my drawing, the rock hill is about a 20-foot high, and it creates a bit of a challenge. We've looked at how to put a garage in at the back, and upon discovering the back lot line and understanding the road allowance that's back there, we have some challenges in fitting that in without materially disturbing this rock feature. And the unknowns that are there at the moment on how to do that. We've had discussions with a number of different builders and with Vince Hammond, who's likely to do our foundation work. We've had discussions with Ted Rule, who's done the preliminary foundation drawings, and discovered that the 100-foot that Bernie's Road has a 100-foot road allowance, which is about the widest ever seen for a 7 cottage road. And visually, that lot, about 30 feet of that lot allowance has been visually part of our property for the whole time. It's not, but it's been visually there. The road runs on the north side of that allowance, and there's about 30 feet that is between the actual road and our property line. So in discovering that, we know that we have a challenge fitting a garage in there with a 25-foot setback. We're proposing that we build a garage with a 13-foot setback to the property line. It has approximately a 50 to 50, I think 58 feet setback to the center of the road. It's well away from the road. It's well away from anything that would impact road maintenance because of this the berm that's there. And so that's the plan. We've submitted both drawings for the garage and the cottage, and so we're seeking a minor variance on that rear lot setback.
Well, those earth eggs do show up in a lot of different places, don't they? They do.
It's too pretty to remove. I'm Judy Farr, Earl's wife.
Well, there are a couple of conditions that if the variance is granted that you'll be restricted by. If you would like to bring us up to date on that, Jeff?
Yes, and first off, thank you, Chair. First off, I'd just like to note that we did receive comments from the road superintendent, who notes that the location of the garage will not affect their operations, and they don't have any concerns with the proposed setback. But as the Chair mentioned, there are a few conditions being recommended today just to address some of the other structures currently located on the property. Some of them don't comply with the number of accessory buildings permitted or the setbacks, and some are located on the shore road allowance. So I'm going to pass it over to the Deputy Secretary to read the conditions, and then perhaps when she's done, we can have a discussion.
So, perfect. So the variance apply to the private garage is shown generally in the property sketch dated May 17th. The County of Haliburton Tree Preservation Bylaw applies. During construction, proper site preparation and construction methods are to be used. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the woodshed and hot tub located within the minimum water setback are to be removed or brought into compliance. Prior to the pouring of the footings, the applicant must submit confirmation from an Ontario land surveyor that the garage complies with the rear lot line setback as shown on the property sketch dated May 17th. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the 2 private cabins are to be removed. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the shed is to be removed or brought into compliance.
You okay with that?
Well, yes, yes, we are okay with that.
Okay.
So we have 5 kids and a lot of stuff, and that's why we're building the garage and the loft, just to make it, a little bit more spacious.
Want to consolidate you're consolidating your holdings? Is that what you're doing?
That's what we're doing.
We unfortunately, with 5 kids, you have a lot of stuff.
Danielle has a comment here.
Some of them, 2 of them are stuck in BC, so we're holding all their stuff since COVID got them locked down there. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge. And if anybody has any ideas how to do that, then we're open for any suggestions, but yeah, this has been a dream for a long time and we're super excited about it. And yeah, we just can't wait to spend more time up there and have more space so we can breathe.
Perfect. Danielle has a comment here.
I just want to say that you are allowed to have 2 accessory buildings plus 1 that is 10 square meters. Your property sketch showed that the shed was on the property line. It does have to be a minimum of 1 meter. So you don't necessarily have to remove it, but bring it into compliance by moving it off the property line.
Yeah, well, I think what we will do, what we propose to do is to work with the building department on how best to bring our entire property into compliance.
Okay. We got the resolution.
David had a question?
Yes.
Mr. Bishop?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. I would like to have the applicants address a question in regard to their measurements and this sketch. In terms of your distancing of 13 feet from that back line, how was the back line determined and how was the exact measurement of 13 feet arrived at?
We took the original plan of, I guess, plan of development, you might call it, the original survey. We located there's at least 8 iron bars located in the long Bernie circle. We located all of those bars except the bars on our property. Unfortunately, no matter what the digging, what we used metal detectors to try and find those iron bars, we've not been able to find them. I have lined up and done the geometry. I've spent probably 3 days doing it, lining up the geometry, looking at measurements from existing iron bars within the Bernie circle area. And by all material respects, in my opinion, I'm not a land surveyor, but when you look at the plan and you determine that, it's, I've got a pretty good idea that I'm in 6 inches of the property line based on all of that, the information I have. And then we measured from there to what we believe is the start of this rock hill. It is somewhat covered in fill right up to that point. So it is still somewhat approximate. What we want to do is to fit it. 13 feet is my estimate. It's not going to be. We're not going to need 10 feet, right? I think we've got the measurement pretty darn accurately based on a lot of work on my part to do that.
Well, my question, Mr. Chairman, to the applicant is, when you apply for the permit and you put in your footings, what are you going to do if it turns out that it's 12 feet 3 inches? Do you understand what your gamble is there?
Yes, I do. And based on one of the conditions that has been applied for here, unfortunately, I'm going to have to do a survey anyway, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to confirm it.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Chair. And just to clarify, you don't have to do a full survey, just a surveyed measurement to confirm that meets the setback if approved. You don't need a full property survey.
You know how much that is, by the way, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't know the current rates. I'm sure they're changing quickly with everything else. But yeah, I recommend you contact a local surveyor. They'll help you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, we'll trust you for that. Let's carry on with the resolution. We need a mover and a seconder. Mover, Gerald Walker. Seconder, David Bishop. Moved and seconded, the committee's decision with respect to file D13 MV 2021-15 be recorded as follows. A decrease provision of section 5.2 to permit a garage to have a minimum rear lot line setback of 3.9 meters or 13 feet, as opposed to the required 7.5 meters or 24.6 feet. Carried. Please indicate your support. Granted. There is an appeal period, but I don't expect that it will come into effect, but 20 days, so you're set to go.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is Markward Lake. So we're dealing with
Martin's.
Patricia Barton, or Blair and Morton. Blair and Morton. Are they live here?
They're just coming on the screen.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Well, it is afternoon now.
It is. I was just looking at the clock to confirm it wasn't morning. I think my husband John is there, and we also have Tanya and Mike Bover from Royal Homes,
Okay.
which is the people that are helping us through this process. So, first of all, Mr. Chair and committee members, thanks so much for your time on this. I know it's been a long meeting so far, so I hope you're not too hungry. And I also wanted to thank Danielle and Jeff. John and I are obviously very, very new to this process, and they have been very helpful in answering a lot of questions and taking time out of their days for us. So thanks very much. I guess, we are sort of new at this, so bear with me and ask any questions you might have. We are on a lot that has a big rock cliff, probably about 50 feet, 60 feet high at the back of the lot. We're proposing right now to take down a cottage that is probably was built in the 70s. It is in very bad disrepair. So we really wanted to make sure that we have a permanent building that will stand the test of time, as well as be a dream cottage for us. We did choose Royal Homes because they are a modular home builder to really make sure that we're keeping in tune with a lower impact on the environment. And as we went through this process, actually Danielle and Jeff suggested that we get an environmental survey, which we did go ahead with. And there was a lot of recommendations in that both John and I fully support all of those recommendations and are very, very willing to comply with everything suggested in the EIS. The building that we are going to build, we're actually trying to put it back further from the lake than the current cottage. The current cottage is very, very close to the lake. What our proposal is to probably move it. I don't know the exact measurements. Mike would probably be able to help me there. But we're going to move it back about 25 feet from the water, from the current existing building. And that is really putting it back as far as we can without doing any blasting. We don't want to interrupt the property. We want to try and keep it as natural as possible without harming any wildlife or any of the property as well. So that's basically what we're proposing to do. So one of the things that came out of Danielle's process was that apparently the crib of our dock is it has a triangle of about half foot, so probably about 6 square inches that encroaches on the next door neighbor's property. We've been working with Mrs. Barton. I believe she's also going to speak here today. We're trying to resolve that encroachment. We are very committed to making sure that whatever is the right solution to that, we will move forward with. So I think that Mrs. Barton and her son are here to talk to that point. I think they're in agreement with some sort of solution to that piece of it as well. I think that's it. It's not a huge building. It will be about 1,650 square feet with a walkout basement. So if you have any questions, I'm not sure if I've addressed everything.
Two things. First of all, I would congratulate you on the environmental impact study. It's very complete, and I'm sure caused a bit of consternation on your part getting that all done. However, I feel that the committee would like to visit your property before we make a decision, which doesn't really mean you don't have to reapply to the variance. We'll go and visit the property and make a decision on based on what we see there. And hopefully we can, I don't know how we work out the dock business, but I'm sure somebody will have some ideas. But I think we would like to visit your property and then defer the decision until the next meeting.
Sure. That's absolutely no problem at all. Yeah, absolutely welcome you to come to the property. You can see how much we love it.
So are you there most times? We'd like somebody to show us around, that's all.
Yeah, we'll certainly accommodate whatever schedule you guys.
Danielle would make the arrangements on that.
Yeah, we'd be happy to work around whatever schedule you guys have.
That's fair enough. Yep.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And just before we proceed, we do have some comments received from the public that staff would like to read out.
Okay.
If the committee is considering a site inspection, perhaps we can set a date today, or at least a tentative date.
Mm-hmm.
The next meeting is not till July 14th, so I can pull up the calendar and we can look at that and maybe set something before we leave here today.
Okay.
But if Danielle could read the comments received, that would be great. I believe we have one member that wants to speak on this matter too.
We have a couple of people who wish to speak to your application, so we'll deal with that.
Yep. Perfect. So I'll read out the comments, and then there are two people today that want to speak to this application as well. So an email was received from Simon Miller representing the Sunset Corporation. It's an adjacent neighbor. The comments are as follows. Simon represents the Sunset Corporation, also with Stefan. The property is immediately adjacent to the property owned by John Blair and Jillian Morton. They reviewed the minor zoning variant and would like to express their full support for the change. The Sunset Corporation was founded in 1985 as a nonprofit to provide water access to the property owners on Quarry Lake, who only have access to the properties via the water. They say no negative impacts to the property or on the lake. In fact, the new cottage having a further setback would only be a good thing. Now I will bring in Patty Barton and Darren Barton to speak on the application.
There's Patty Barton and there's Darren Barton.
Yep. Darren, you are muted.
Getting myself live here. Okay. So I'm present. Hi, Darren. So I want to say thank you very much for allowing me to speak. And I want to start by saying that I do appreciate the willingness of Jillian and John to work with me in regard to the encroachment issue. I have now had the opportunity to speak with all of my sons. It was a rather quick turnaround because my notice came by mail, and good old slow mail. Anyway, we realized I had had some discussions with Jillian and John, and we had been talking about one solution, but then we realized that there actually is a more simple and expedient way to handle the encroachment of the dock issue. Now, I wasn't clear exactly how much, but I think you identified it as 6 inches. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's a little triangle of the dock. Yeah.
Yeah. So what would seem to be the easiest way is that I permit a limited amount of encroachment of the dock onto my property. Now it's 6 inches, and I'm willing to go a foot, but that would certainly give you the clearance that you would be able to proceed. And then at a later point, if there needed to be any discussions in terms of anything else, we could look at that. But just to be able to move your position forward and let you proceed with your plans, which look wonderful. And I see the screenshot in the back. It really illustrates how beautiful the view is of that place.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much, Patty. Patty, that
Thank you.
we also
Thank you.
want to express our appreciation of Patty and her family of working with us on this. It's been very helpful and very nice to. We have great neighbors, so we're very happy with that.
We're very blessed. Yep.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to note that staff did word the proposed condition in a way that it leaves the options to resolve the encroachment open to anything that you guys can agree on. So, and that we didn't put a time limit on it or anything. It's just that it needs to be resolved. So at the point where you come to a mutual resolution, perhaps you provide us some documentation, and that would satisfy that condition.
Yeah, we can certainly do that.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, so if we,
Walt has a question.
pardon?
Mr. McKechnie, you have a question?
You,
Walt.
Walter, go ahead.
Yeah, I think your two families here should be running some classes on teaching cottagers and neighbors how to get along and resolve issues. Over the years, we've seen a lot of these, and it's just great to see some common sense and respect for one another come out. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
if I may comment, there's actually a historical thing on that because the Barton family, Mr. and Mrs. Senior, bought the property back in '54 and built 2 years after. And a number of years later, Mr. McVeigh bought the property adjacent, and then started a long discussion about boundaries. And he was very one-minded. So yeah, we've been that route and we don't want to pursue that.
Thank you very much.
We do have someone else that wants to speak to the
Yeah, we have
application.
another person who wishes to speak. Yeah, who it is?
Yep,
Yeah. Do you want to bring him up?
I can.
Yeah, that's a question at some point.
Okay. Are we live?
Just coming on the screen. Jim Shad, I'm trying to promote you to a panelist. May you accept?
You can just unmute, perhaps.
Yes, it's Jamshid.
Thank you.
You wanted to comment on the application?
No, I'm all okay with it. I haven't built anything yet, so I'm fine.
It's okay. Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Based on that,
Dave has a comment, Chair.
Mr. Bishop, you have the comment?
Well, yes, Mr. Chair, but I welcome Walter's comments in regard to neighborly attitudes between cottagers. But I have to caution them that they should make sure that they get proper advice as to how to create a necessary encroachment agreement and what might follow from that. So it's just something that it can be dealt with, but it has to be dealt with in accordance with some very strict requirements of the Planning Act.
We will abide by that and we will seek counsel accordingly. And we will make sure that whatever agreements we come between Jillian and myself with Patty Barton and family will be done legally and in conformance with all the required planning act, Mr. Bishop. So yes.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate that. It's just that I can't help being a retired lawyer.
Yes, and I deal with lawyers owning a technology company on a fairly regular basis. So yes, it's a part of my my shtick, as they say. Reading
Well,
contracts. So.
If you work on the second variance required, then we will attend your property sometime between now and the next meeting, and hopefully we can clear the whole thing up.
Absolutely, we'll try to endeavor to get that done ASAP.
Okay.
May I ask a question? Sorry.
There, go ahead.
Sorry. I just wanted to ask a question on the recommendations, and I know we're sort of moving ahead. One of the recommendations is a site plan agreement, and we're very happy with the environmental study. And I'm wondering if instead of having a full site plan agreement, which obviously is quite a bit of extra work and money, we're wondering if we might be able to have the recommendations of the EIS be a part of the recommendations instead of going to the full site plan agreement. It's the same thing. It incorporates a number of recommendations, and I was just wondering if we might table that for consideration.
Yes, thank you. And staff certainly recommend a site plan agreement. Actually, the environmental impact study also recommended that those conditions be imposed by a site plan agreement. The one thing about the site plan agreement, it will ensure that the technical requirements of that environmental impact study are implemented, but also carry with the land for the long term. When you impose it as a condition of a minor variance, you will be held to it right now at the time of construction, but 15, 20, 50, 100 years down the road, staff are concerned that it would get lost and that future owners would not recognize that those conditions exist on the property. So that staff would recommend site plan agreement. We do understand that it does impose a bit more hardship on the applicants. But then again, that is the appropriate process to ensure that we take the necessary measures to protect our lakes and protect our shorelines and our natural heritage features. So staff would certainly be recommending that.
Okay. Mr. Walker?
If I could, maybe we could delay that decision until we do the site visit, because there may be something a little more protruding that we could deal with it at the next meeting.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. What do you want to set a time for that now? Or a date?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Is there a better day of the week for you, Jillian and John?
I don't know about
we will accommodate. Yeah, we will accommodate whatever is appropriate for you. If it could be, a Monday or a Friday, that works better because then we'll be there for a weekend. But if it's a Wednesday, we'll be there anyway.
Okay.
Like it's really up to you. We'll work around your schedule. We're pretty flexible. It gives us another reason to drive from Markham. And trust me, I'll have any reason to drive from Markham to that cottage.
Well, I don't have a very full dance card either, so I'm available. So really is up to the committee just to pick a date.
If we could do it before July 1st.
Sure.
Perhaps we could just try and get this over with as soon as possible. Perhaps just keeping with Wednesdays, maybe the 23rd of the month.
23rd of
June.
23rd of June.
And that would give us a
Wide
few weeks
open.
prior, just in case there's any complications.
That
Yep.
suit everybody?
That suits me. I'm wide open, so yep, no
Yeah.
problem.
Suits me.
Say
Dave Bishop?
11 a.m.
I don't have
Fine
my
with me.
social calendar, Mr. Chair, at this point in time. I'm not trying to be jocular in that regard, but I want to be able to say tentatively, I think so.
Okay.
23rd, but you know me.
Yeah. Mr. McKechnie, will you be still on the committee then?
No, you're kicking me off, Popple.
Oh, you're kicking you off?
Yeah.
So I guess no point in coming to the site meeting then.
No, unfortunately, I won't be able to see another part of this great municipality.
A wonderful
Go ahead.
municipality.
Let's do it.
I was just going to suggest, based on Committee Member Bishop's comments, we'll just tentatively set the meeting for June 23rd at 11 a.m.
11
If
a.m.
anybody has any issues, anybody listening, any members of the public are welcome to attend. If anybody has any concerns, they can contact Danielle or I, and then we can re-coordinate and try and reschedule a meeting.
Right. Well, we'll probably be there if we're going to be there on the 23rd, just sort of knowing and be respectful for everyone's time. The remainder of that week, if we're going to set the 23rd, we will be at the cottage. If that makes things more flexible for everybody. Okay,
Yeah,
so
so
I'm just letting you know that we don't necessarily have to stay for that day. As I say, any reason to stay at the cottage is a better reason than staying in Markham.
Okay. So the variance is requested. I need a motion to defer the two variances requested based pending a site visit. So someone move that? Jerry and David Bishop. So the variance provision is section 3.19 to permit an increase in the area of encroachment of a dwelling within the required water setback abutting a shoreline and a dimension most nearly parallel to the shoreline of 23.5 meters or 77 feet, as opposed to the required maximum of 18.5 meters or 60.7 feet is deferred. And the decrease provision in section 3 to provide a marine facility on a lot having frontage greater than 33.5 meters to have a minimum setback of 0 meters as opposed to required 7.1 meters. It's also deferred. It's carried. Indicate your support. Thank you. So we'll see you on the 23rd of June.
We look forward to it. We'll put on coffee.
Yep. We will also look forward to that. I've never been to Parker Lake, so that'll be good.
Oh, it's beautiful.
You'll
You'll
love it.
love it.
You love it. Thank you for the opportunity.
It's not heaven, but you can see it from there apparently.
It's pretty close.
close to
It's
heaven.
pretty close.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
So what do we got next here is, so we have Mr. DeVries.
I'm just bringing them in.
Is he on here?
Not quite.
His two sons are also joining him.
Hmm?
His two sons are also joining him.
Oh, Aaron DeVries and Stephen.
Correct.
Your owner is John.
Is this John?
John is, I'll ask him to start his video.
Hmm?
I'm asking him to start his video.
That's Aaron. That must be his son.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll get him started.
Trying to get it going.
No rush. We've worked through these technical difficulties many, many times.
We're getting there. Okay, we had trouble getting the video to work on our side. We don't know why. Your camera's not launched properly. So I may have to go to, I can join Stephen in his office and we'll get through this. Just hold on a minute.
Okay.
Okay.
You gotta go off mute. Okay.
Okay, all set?
Can you hear us now? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear them though.
Okay, I can. Okay, I can't hear anybody else though.
Are you not able to?
Okay,
Wait a minute.
Yeah,
You're
that's
all set?
perfect.
we can
Okay.
hear. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Shall we start?
So it's my turn to start?
Yep. You're
Okay.
up.
Okay, so just a little bit of a background here. We've owned the cottage property for about 20 years. We bought it in 2000. There are two cabins on the property. One is a 1936 log cabin, and one is in the 50s, 53 it was built. In 2005, this was a water access property. In 2005, we, along with 5 other folks, built a road called Rest a While Drive. And now that we are retired, we're spending more and more time there, and we want to basically have a bit more room to operate. The cottages are quite small, and we just want a bit more room, especially because we have quite an expanded family by now. So just a bit more background in this process that we've been involved in trying to get something done. Has been 3 years now. In 2018, I met with the building inspector to basically show him what we were trying to do, and I showed him a bit of a sketch of a site plan, and just to see what could be done. And he said, "Yeah, that sounds fine. It should be good." So then we went ahead and got the design done. Oh, he said the first thing, the septic system needs to be tested or checked. So we got that done. Then we got the design done. And then the designer said, well, we think we'd like to get the site plan approved. So we did that. We got the site plan, or at least went back to the inspector to get the site plan approved. And then we became aware of the 10-meter setback. There's a bylaw for the 10-meter setback. So that's basically, we kind of stopped on that whole thing there at that point. I spoke to Director Jeff Isles about it, and he said we really need to kind of find out exactly where we're at, and a survey would help a lot. So we commissioned a survey, not of the whole property, but the relevant part of the property. That survey is not yet registered. It's a preliminary survey, because the surveyor said it's probably a good idea to buy the shore road allowance at the same time. So then we went down that road, and the report from the shore road allowance application that came back had, it was approved subject to 3 conditions. And the 3 conditions were that there was a wood shed that was too close to the water. We didn't realize that it was actually the old outhouse that we moved and used it for wood storage. It's less than 100 square feet. But anyway, we moved it back behind the 66-foot setback. So that's now compliant. The other condition was that our deck attached to our main dwelling is it's encroaching on the water setback. So that either had to be made compliant, or the deck had to be adjusted, and that's why we're asking for a minor variance for that deck. And then the third thing that the report came back with was we have a garage with a loft, and that loft was built or that garage was built with the upstairs loft was storage. So it's a garage with storage. And they said if you wanted to use that as extra living space, then you would have to request a minor variance to make that happen. So that's why we're actually doing that. And then the last thing that's related to this is, then we came back to the original, or then we said, can we ask for more than one variance on an application? And they said yes. So we said, okay. Then we'd also like to go back to the original idea, which was to expand or build a small room onto the main cottage, which encroaches a small amount on the 30-meter, pardon me, the 10-meter requirement. So that's basically the background. And we're very mindful of the fact that, we need to basically keep the area looking the same. And certainly that's our goal. We have a lot of vegetation there. We're going to retain all of that. The deck that I mentioned has very little visibility from the waters. It's fairly well shielded with vegetation. So I think, we're really trying hard to basically not change the landscape, but to keep it as it is. And we just heard from the other party how nice Farquhar Lake is, and we agree with that. We've come to love the place. But we do need more room, and that's because we have a total of 18 grandchildren now, and obviously when they're there with their parents, that's quite a group. We cannot bring trailers into our property because when we built the road, that's a huge hill that we have to go across, and we can't pull a trailer across there. So that's why we really need to use the property as opposed to bringing in other things that to help living there.
So have you proceeded with the purchase of the shore allowance?
Yes, it's approved, subject to the three conditions that I mentioned.
Okay. So it's approved, subject to these conditions.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And the one condition is already taken care of. That's the woodshed. We moved that woodshed. And the other two conditions are two of the variances that we've requested. The one is to basically make the deck compliant, and the other one is to make the loft into living space. Those were the conditions of the shore road allowance purchase.
No.
We would like to come and visit your property as well.
Well, you could probably do it the same time you go to the other party at Farquhar Lake.
Well, that would probably suit us just fine.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Absolutely.
Make sure you have a 4x4 to get over the hill.
Yeah, you do need a 4x4, but otherwise, absolutely, it'd be a great idea. Yeah.
I think we can arrange 4x4. I don't think that's a big problem.
Everybody up north knows that. Yeah.
Will one of you people be there on the 23rd of June?
We'll make it a point to be there.
Okay. Well, we will go there after, so if we set it for 12:30 or 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is the committee in agreement that we should visit this property?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So
Yeah.
we will defer everything until the next meeting, okay?
Okay.
So the two variances, or the variances that you requested, are just going to be deferred to the next meeting.
Yeah, we understand that. Yeah, that's
And
fine.
then we'll it's kind of like a pig in a poke when if you've never been on the property, so.
Yeah, and I think the cottage is going to be really important for.
So if we said 12:30, that gives us an hour and a half. So 12:30 on June 23rd.
Yeah, that sounds great.
12:30. Number two is Louise. Well, where's the resolution? We'll just defer them. I don't think I have to read them all again. I would say that the motion is that we defer the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 variances requested pending a site visit on June 23rd. Will someone make that motion? Gerald Walker, and seconded by David Bishop. And it will be each one of these variances, you don't have to reapply, you don't have to do anything else, you don't have to pay more money, but they will be dealt with after the site visit on the 23rd. So it'll probably be in July.
So that's perfect. That's perfect. So we're totally on board with that. Yeah.
Fair enough. That's what we'll do. So,
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, thanks for everybody. Thanks for your time. We learned a lot for listening to all the other applications, and we kind of understand the process a little better now.
Thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you on the 23rd. It's not necessary to prepare any lunch. We won't need one lunch.
Okay, sounds great.
We do need one now.
Need a mover that we adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
David Bishop. Resolve the meeting now be adjourned at 12:40.
Just ask a quick, Walter, do you know who your replacement is for the next term?
I don't know who
No,
it is.
I don't think it's Nancy, and I don't think it's Tammy. So the only one that would be, it'd be Larry or John Smith, Larry Clark or John Smith. I don't know though. Probably Jeff knows or Danielle knows.
It will be John Smith.
Pardon?
It will be John Smith.
John Smith? Well, we can take him on that meeting.
Because he wasn't here today, he won't be able to discuss or vote on this when it comes back.
He can still come and look.
One thing I do caution all committee members, if one of you is not able to make the site inspection, or if one of you is not able to make the meeting in July, then perhaps Walt should still participate in the site inspection and participate in the meeting in July, just to ensure that we don't run into any quorum issues. So look ahead at your schedules. If you have any concerns, you won't be able to make the site inspection or the next meeting, then Walt, perhaps it's best you come to the site inspection and participate until both.
When you were picking that date, I didn't comment, but I might have already a commitment on the 23rd.
Okay, so we can look at it if there are going to be any concerns from
I'm
the
sure,
other three.
John Smith will be available. But you're saying he can't come because he didn't take part in this?
Correct. So yeah, if there's concerns from any of the other three, then it's advisable that you still participate, and we can rework the schedule. If 24th doesn't work, 23rd doesn't work for you. If it doesn't work for you,
the 24th could work, but the 23rd I'm not available.
Okay, we'll do that.
Yeah, we'll take a look after. We can do that after the meeting. Anybody just contact Danielle.
So
That's why I wondered why maybe Mr. Smith wasn't on here today because of these files.
well, if the 24th works, those other people are going to be up. So it's just a question whether we catch these guys on the same day. So we just have to set that up.
I can work with them.
Yep.
So if you guys can let me know by the end of this week if the 23rd works, and if not, then I'll discuss with the applicants for another day.
You're saying the 23rd or the 24th?
The 23rd. So if Jerry and Dave both can't make the 23rd, then we'll have to look for another day.
Okay.
And I'm
So
good
if Jerry
both
and
days.
Dale can make it, they will be going and I won't be going, or what's the deal? Because I won't be
Correct.
going on the 23rd.
If Dave and Jerry can both go on the 23rd, we will have quorum with Dawn.
Okay.
Also
And,
have to make sure that both of us would be available on the date for the hearing, on the July date. So that's another
Yeah,
avenue.
let's do that.
That's July 14th. Is the
Correct.
next meeting.
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
So it's going to be the 23rd.
So far, we've set the 23rd at 11 and the 23rd at 12:30 for the second property.
Fair enough.
And if that doesn't work, as we mentioned, just let us know and we'll figure it out. Thanks, everybody.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yep.
Absolutely.
And probably, there's probably some technical reason, but nothing was really discussed other than all the minor variances. The new guy coming in replacing me, like, why couldn't he be in on that? Because he didn't really, if he read over the report, all we did was go over what the variances were, right? But maybe technically
He can be in on it, but I don't think he can vote on it, Walter.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. I understand what you're suggesting, but out of an abundance of caution, it's best that he doesn't participate in case there is any chance of appeal. That would just be something that would not work or look good in the municipality's favor.